You're listening to the Live from the Caribbean podcast, the show that brings the stories of island people making a global impact, with your host, Pauline Joseph.
Okay, welcome back to Live from the Caribbean, and I'm here with Emile, and we're gonna go straight into it. Emile, what do you do?
Okay, so I create and publish courses, online training courses, video-based on a platform called Udemy. And essentially, Udemy, what they do, it's like a course marketplace. So I publish the courses and it's sold on Udemy. People from all over the world purchase the courses. And then Udemy gets a share, I get a share, and that's how I get paid. So all of my income right now comes from outside of TNT, exclusively from the Udemy platform. And that's what I do for a living.
So you're making those US dollars.
Yes, US dollars, US dollars.
So do you know of any other Caribbean people doing what you're doing on Udemy?
No, I've never heard of anyone else doing it. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any people doing it. There could be, but thus far, okay, like for instance, on Udemy, there's a Udemy community, like a discussion forum. All the instructors are there sharing ideas and topics and sometimes complaining a little too much. And
Humans do.
yeah, so and never came across anyone from the Caribbean. Now there's a guy called Jivan who actually published a few courses. So he's from Trinidad, but he migrated to the UK many years ago. So he's from Trinidad, from the Caribbean, lives in the UK, and publishes courses on Udemy. That's the only other person I know about Caribbean based.
Wow. So you're not sure if you're the first or not from Trinidad. Is there a way to filter teachers on Udemy, like where they're from?
No, you can't, unfortunately. Yeah,
Wow.
you can't. That's all of these statistical tools have to do with students. How many times they landed on the landing page, the conversion
Yes.
rates, where they're from, and a whole set of other stuff. Instructors, nope.
You might give me an idea there. I might reach out to Udemy and be like, guys, can we talk to these Caribbean teachers? Because
Exactly.
those are future podcast interviewers.
I think they would be happy to share that information. They might contact the lecturers first and say, hey, do you mind so and so and so? And yeah.
That could be a future sponsor.
Yep.
Giving me ideas. So, okay, let's go back to you. And enough about me planning Life from the Caribbean podcast. So was this something you envisioned that you'd be doing? Like, how did this happen? How did you fall upon this space at Udemy?
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question. So I guess you could say the overall theme is failing forward. So I have a degree in electrical engineering, and I graduated from UE many moons ago, 1994. And I worked in public and private sectors until about 2003, when I was sort of fed up of public and private sector, or every single job I've been in. And 2003, I sort of went out on my own and freelancing. And what I had learned in my various jobs is something called industrial automation, and specifically the networking. And long and short of that is just devices in factories, like what used to be Petrotrin and so on, or oil and gas sector, all these different industrial sectors, how to make all these devices communicate, program them, and so on. And I started doing that and some other the mainstream software development, and continued along that way until about 2012, I think it was. Yeah. And then I decided, hey, I'm getting older. I need to create, like with freelancing, you're basically your income is tied to your time. So what I needed to do is sort of pull that link apart. So I started experimenting with various types of businesses and failed quite a lot at many of them, in fact, almost all of them.
Can you give me one of those businesses that you failed at?
Oh, yeah, sure. I had this quote unquote brilliant idea of creating a website that businesses could subscribe to that would allow them to create online gift certificates. And then persons could buy these online gift certificates and email it to them, like Merry Christmas. So you go on, let's say XYZ Spa, so what would happen is that there would be a plugin on their website. You could click on it. It would go to my website, which is a service, and create a coupon and then email it to whoever, the recipient. And of course, I would charge a fee for it, and the money would then go to the XYZ Spa in this particular case. And I did a bunch of work, created it. It worked really, really well. And I created a brilliant product that nobody wanted.
So, so it's funny because, great. There are a lot of failures that start off with as amazing ideas. It's always great in your mind. I have a list of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have so many great ideas written down. It's not funny. I still get great ideas, but they just end up being written down in Evernote into a note that says Emile's dumb ideas. Because all are dumb until the data shows they're not dumb.
Yeah.
So I've been burnt too many times.
I think that's the difference now with an idea. I mean, information the data's out there, right? And you and I could sit down here and have a great idea, and if the audience doesn't give a damn, that's really what they don't teach you in school. It's amazing that they're teaching entrepreneurship, and it's like, no, failure has to be part of it, and you can't teach failure. So that's it's refreshing to hear that I am not alone. I feel like mine costs way too much too, but I guess that's education.
To go back to pure Trini, I've bonked my head many times.
Wow. So it's one of those things where based on your natural progression of your jobs, this is where you ended up.
Yeah. And I guess I was frustrated when I'm always looking, I'm always reading, I'm always looking for different courses to take. And the one course that actually changed things for me and changed my style was a course called 30 by 500, actually from a website called Stacking the Bricks. And the two hosts are Amy Hoy and Alex Hillman, and they are just so hardcore in terms of what they see as the rubbish that is put out there with all this startup stuff and the lean startup and the this and the that kind of thing. They're like hardcore. Here's what. Don't go too fancy. Find a need, find a pain, and attack that. It might be a dream stuff or whatever, but start there and you can grow from there. So they are the ones that started me on the path of investigating what is needed out there. So I looked at my skills, and one of those skills was in industrial networking. And I decided to do a low risk experiment, which was to publish a course. And around that time, Udemy was sort of gaining some momentum, and I found them and I said, hey, what could I lose? I'm going to publish a course. If it sucks, no problem. If it doesn't, if people start to take it, I would have tested without throwing in like half a year of my life. Right?
It's like the equivalent of a lean startup, because you don't have to invest in rent or equipment or anything, right? It's minimal in terms of what you have to invest in. So I have a question, because to the layman man, which is me right now, and probably millions of people out there, what exactly is what you're doing in terms of the electrical side of things? Can you break it down to me in the simplest format? Because for me, I put a plug in an outlet.
Right.
And then you put a picture up with all these little slots, and I don't know, it looks like a server, but it's not a server. I don't know. What is it that, for a person like me who every day interacts with something, that the person who is looking to your course benefited from?
Okay. So you mean like what would be an example of the discipline that I teach, and like what they would be looking to benefit?
Yeah.
Like who would be benefiting?
Yeah.
All right. So let's go with the first question. So let's use a local example. SM Jaleel Bottling Chubby. So they have a bottling line, and it starts with these huge, huge vats of lots of soft drink, and they get pumped out onto a line. So there's something called a descrambler, which turns all the bottles upright, goes on the conveyor, it goes to the filler fills all the bottles, then those bottles go on the conveyor again, and they go to um, well, they go to a labeler, they're labeled, and then from there they go on the conveyor again to a packing machine and a palletizer. So that entire assembly line requires coordination from between all those machines. The filler must work at a certain rate and do certain things, and the batcher and the labeler and the palletizer, all those things must coordinate amongst one another. So programming those machines to work the way they do and communicate to one another such that they don't mess up the entire line and don't back up at any one point in time, that's industrial automation and networking. That essentially is it. And getting all of that to work, yes. So the thing about, go ahead.
So for those who not sure, because we have some second and third generation Caribbean people listening, SM Jaleel, and it's one of the biggest exporters in Trinidad, if not the Caribbean, of soda, which is also known as soft drink or sweet drink, if you are colloquial.
Correct.
Sea drink or sea drink.
Sea drink.
Yeah, but go on, carry on.
Right. Yes. So the thing about it is this: when I came out of university, I was supposed to know all of this stuff, but they didn't teach me that stuff, and it was frustrating learning it. And so, unlike a lot of other certifications out there, like in mainstream IT, there are very few certifications in the field of industrial automation and networking. So, they're out there. In addition to that, there aren't many courses. There weren't many courses. So when I published my course, it was a hit because there were these engineers all over the world who were experiencing the same thing I did. I came out of the university. They were supposed to teach me this. I did electrical engineering. I'm kind of smart. I don't know what the heck they're talking about in these job interviews. So one by one, as I release courses, it's those sort of people with that sort of need that, you know what, I work in the industry. There's no one teaching me about this. I could find pockets of it on the internet, but I just want a full course that helps me get from point A to point B, such that I could put it on my resume, use it in my job, and be a superstar.
That's interesting because I'm gonna go off topic for a second here and talk about education, because someone made a comment, your young friends and family, so that's when everybody tells you all their thoughts. And my friend was like, I know you don't really respect education. And I was like, that's not fair. I respect education. I think it's extremely important. However, I feel like there are gaps that nobody's talking about. And what you're saying there to me is just so fascinating. And I want you to tell me, how do you view education? Because you're in that space. And how long have you been doing the Udemy courses now?
3 years, 7 months.
Wow, okay. So you have some insights in the education space. And speaking to people too who are going to UE, I'm going to be specific on universities. And I talk to students and I ask them why they're doing the degree they're doing. And I know, when you're young, you kind of decide on certain things, but it just seems like the general consensus is,
Yeah.
So what is your take on that?
There needs to be a full-fledged revolution in education because, I use 5% probably of what I learned at university level.
Yeah.
I could have done something else with that time. I could have enjoyed myself.
Or make those mistakes with those ideas that you had.
Yeah, exactly. So the education system as is, in my opinion, can't handle the world that we're in. There's a big, big disjoint there. I don't know what the answer is. There's some really great books. There's this author called Ken Robinson. He has a TED Talk. He has some really great books, and he talks about other education models. I don't know what the answer is, but I know what we have just does not work anymore. It wastes people's time. Um, and the thing about it, it's such a monster now. To change it, it's just
Yeah.
going to be hard because
Yeah.
it is a whole structure and social structure built onto it. It is something else.
Yeah,
Uh,
I listened, I think it was Freakonomics on the podcast was talking about social currency because
mm,
that's important when you are going to university, the
yeah,
people that you've met, how they basically, because it's an argument for education and universities, which
mm,
I think there is a need for universities. I just think it needs to be revamped. You're absolutely right. And just spinning
yes,
just spinning it upside down and say, okay, these are things we need to start breaking down and applying. But it's such a monster, as you said. It's like,
mhm,
where can it really go when it's so big and you have people making decisions who've been making decisions for 100 plus years, right?
yeah.
So that institutionalized behaviors. Hey, Pauline here. This is possibly going to be the worst ad you've ever heard because I'm just doing this for my marketing expenditure. AC Marketing is the one financing this podcast, so I have to do this for the books. If you want to know what we do, head over to acmarketingcaribbean.com. If not, just keep listening to this podcast. That's pretty much it. I've done my job if my accountant is listening to this. I mean, let's go back to you then because I was
Hmm.
just sidetracked there. That
Yeah,
was just
no,
me trying to find out.
yeah.
What is your audience in terms of your students? Where they majority? Because you said you have access to that data, not necessarily names, but
Right.
like okay, there's 50% from North America, 20% from Asia. Like, what does that look like?
Right. So if you add up the students from the United States and Canada plus India, you'll probably get about 60% of my students.
Okay.
Yeah. So I would say it's like 35% in the last time I checked, 35% in the US, and then probably around, I would say, uh, maybe about 5% in Canada, and then the rest in India. So, and then there's more from, okay, so like there's a lot of engineering that's happening in, India, some in Pakistan, and that kind of thing. And of course, always in the US. They're just always on the ball, always learning. And the rest will be, I would say the other areas in Europe, and Europe, UK, that
So
kind
where
of
the
thing.
Trinis?
That's one of the problems, right? So almost no Caribbean people take my courses,
Wow.
and I can understand why. It's not applicable to the Caribbean now. So Trinidad and Tobago,
Okay.
Trinidad and Tobago, with all of the oil and gas stuff we had, one of the things we didn't do is to sort of move up the ladder in the sort of value-added services. So it's like, okay, we can do the piping and the fitting and the plumbing and the this and that to create the plant, but the programming of all these high-end devices, we'll go to Houston.
Yeah.
And everybody in Houston will do it, and they'll just bring it down, and there'll be some techs that know a few things, and that's it. So if you learn my stuff and you're down in this market,
You just have to jump on a plane, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
so interesting. I guess that's the space you're in. So is there any students that reached out to you and said, okay, because of what I learned, this is the job I landed, this is what happened? Do you have any of their stories? Anyone that
Um,
pops out?
Yeah, somebody emailed me just the other day, and it's a guy working in Houston, and he said, I mean, it was moving what he said, and it was like, he's been working in a company that is in the oil and gas sector, and it's, he uh, for a while, he just hit a ceiling in his job because he's trying and trying and trying, and the company doesn't want to spend money on training. So they just want you to learn through trial and error. And a lot of the persons in the organization who have the knowledge weren't willing to part with it, to teach it. And just some of them were just too busy. And he's saying, I have 22 courses, and the guy, he took like 18 courses, right? And he just said, you have changed my career. Because of this, I moved up so many notches in the ladder there because now I understand these concepts and I'm teaching other people. So it was something that directly impacted his career, and it was amazing. And I get those every now and then, you know, every like once a month at least, you know.
That's amazing to impact someone so far away, right? And these are the stories that just fuel me because it should inspire people out there to do something and use the internet outside of Facebook.
Yes. Yes.
Moving on to, I'm going to shift the conversation a bit and talk about Emile the person. What is it that you do? What gets you going? Like for me, obviously, it's the triathlon. That's my form of escapism. What does Emile do outside of that's all those fancy words and wires?
Okay, so outside of Udemy, outside of the career stuff.
Yes.
Okay, gosh. I like to just do stuff that other people aren't doing, kind of like walk the road less traveled.
Okay.
So I read tons. None of it is fiction. So I'm always I like to read about philosophy. I like to read about, of course, self-development. I like to read, like I'm reading a book now called Why We Sleep. It's just stuff about sleep and, the fact that we don't get as much sleep and so on. And that's what I like to do. I like to, I do a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks, 15Ks, try as much as possible. That's my thing. I like running.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like a lot of running. Fortunately, my wife does the running as well, so I have company, so we're always in all these races. Yeah. And then of course at the side of me that hangs out with the guys and really likes beer, So that's me.
You went from bookworm to runner to bear.
Yeah.
That is a true all-rounder. I can't that's the epitome of a Trinidadian though. We are so cultured.
Exactly. If you apply me with enough beer, I'll start quoting Thoreau to you, which just doesn't work out well. So yeah, that's my life. But I mean, I since I've been doing this, I like to work. So somebody they asked me, I would love to win a lotto. That'd be great, but I'll still work.
Yeah.
I just like to do it. So
don't you think it's important to incorporate all those other things too with your work as well? Because you're gonna be self-driven and self-motivated because of the space you're in. Personally, I've actually committed to triathlons because I found myself enveloped to the point where it was unhealthy. So I basically from a subconscious, unconscious level, I chose the most expensive sport because I was like, if I pay for this race, I have to do the race. Like a gym, you kind of pay and okay, but a race, the amount of money it costs and the bikes and so forth, for me, it became somewhat of a health decision. So I don't know how you view it.
You mean my decision to do running and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and other things, like how do you incorporate it, especially being in an environment where you have to be self-motivated?
Let me see if I get the question correct. How I incorporated all those other aspects of my life.
So more along the lines of the why, why do you think it's important to do it?
I think, okay, I'll just say for me, when things get what I perceive to be bland, I get really depressed really fast. So the things that I do are to keep me feeling that there are so many possibilities in life. So I'm all about possibilities. So one of the bad things maybe is that I don't watch news again because I'll jump off a roof.
Yeah.
It's just something else. So I'll know what's going on generally, but I just can't take the bad news over and over and over again. So everything that I do is driven by the potential of human beings and what they can do. That excites me, that gets me up in the morning. And so that's me. So the things that I do with with running is best part of the race for me is the start when everybody's just muddling around. I'm in this sea of people, and all they want to do is a little better than last time. I'm not in that forum most anywhere else. So all those other things in my life that I incorporate exist around a certain theme that drives me, and the theme is how to make things extraordinary, how to make things out of the ordinary. If you see me in a family setting, extended family setting, I'm very, very quiet because I don't want to talk about traffic and I don't want to talk about politicians and I don't want to talk. I'm just quiet. Like, what's wrong with Emile? No, that's that boy. He just
Yeah.
But I just let's talk about something else. Some
That's
possibility.
interesting.
So how can we make things better as just people on the ground?
Yeah, I feel like that's a whole separate podcast altogether. Because I have a very, very strong opinion on crime in Trinidad and Tobago. But again, that's another podcast because people are willing to have those conversations. They're willing to have difficult conversations because it's easier just to have a conversation that says Trinidad is only in Trinidad and it makes it this close-ended conversation. I'm with you.
Exactly.
But something you said interesting enough about being at the start of the race, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this, from my personal journey, it's been 2 full years now that I've been completely full-time, actually making money.
Right.
And it's been this process for me because I'm an extrovert. Mm-hmm. So being now at home, sometimes I'd go and have like a coffee with Nicole when we're working or having a meeting like once every couple of weeks. But ultimately, everything is like what we're doing now, which is a remote conversation. Right. So do you find yourself looking for that interaction with humans because you are in a space of self all the time? Because you're literally always in your head, based on what I understand what you're doing.
Most definitely. So when the conversations with my dog get a little too complex, it's time to leave the house. Yeah. So I'll be like, Ginger, this particular lecture is not coming together. Oh, wait, hold on. And she'll just be staring at me. So that means she wants me to get out of the house. So most definitely. So if I have to do very deep work, I need to be alone in silence. But I'll be in rituals or Starbucks 2-3 times a week, maybe more, because I will start to go stir crazy. And the fortunate thing is that there are other people like me. So when I go into Starbucks, they'll be like, hey, Greg, hey, Rajiv, hey, Tyrell. I'll see people and they will see me. Okay. So, so there's that little subculture going on there.
A mini tribe. Yeah. And that's why I find coffees are so important. When I retire, that's what I'll do. Have a coffee shop. I'm like, yes, I understand where you're coming from. Hey, are you a small business owner? It's Pauline here. I'm sure you and I can exchange some notes on all the struggles that exist within the entrepreneurship journey in the Caribbean. But one of the things I need to tell you about is Regis. They've been an amazing partner with the LinkedIn local community, and they have a suite of products that's applicable to you. Not only do they have a space, an office space, because post the C word, we're all going to want to interact with somebody, but they also have the option for you to have a mailing address. So check them out. Google Regis Caribbean. They have locations in Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica, and Guyana. Tell them Pauline sent you. So we're going to head back into the workspace and talk about money, right? Because I know that's a real touchy subject in our space.
Yep.
So we know that how you make money is majority from Udemy and it comes in there. But is there, since you've started, how does it work, first of all, with the cash flow? So somebody signs up and you pay for it because you said you have 20 plus courses.
Yeah.
So once they pay, is it like a one-time only payment or is it a subscription? How does that work?
Right. So the Udemy model, when a student pays for a course, it's a one-time payment and they have that course for life, right? So it's always new sales you're looking for constantly. And the essentially lecturers are paid on the 8th of every month. So that while students will buy and it'll go into your Udemy account. And of course, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's a compensation for that. So for instance, on January the 8th, I will actually be getting the income from November, not December, right? So they have to leave that gap for the 30-day money-back guarantee. So you get paid once a month on the 8th, and you have a choice. You can get paid through PayPal or Payoneer. Now, Payoneer, fortunately, will handle, wire transfers to Trinidad and Tobago. So I've set up
Since when?
Yeah, Payoneer. Yeah, about when I first started on Udemy, I had to send it to PayPal and it would go to my credit card. So I used to pay my credit card bill with my Udemy proceeds. I couldn't get the cash in my account. But with Payoneer, Udemy is what I call a mass payout provider. So that what I do, I created an account in Payoneer, I linked it to my Udemy account, and then automatically every month Udemy sends it to Payoneer and Payoneer sends it to my account. It takes about three to 4 business days.
So the money goes to your Payoneer, because I have a Payoneer account as well.
Yeah.
I've actually recently been having issues with them because we used to be able to send invoices and get paid locally, but you can't do that anymore, which you wouldn't have a problem with because you're external, right? But I've never been able to transfer money from the Payoneer account to a local bank. Is that something that you're talking about? Or is it that you just get it to your card? Your Payoneer card?
Directly into my Scotia borrowing personal account. Yeah.
Okay, we need to talk after this podcast.
Yeah, I have it going into there. So what I actually had to do, just give you a snippet, is that I had to contact, when it was initially set up, there was a problem. I had to contact someone via online chat on Payoneer, and they did some modification, and it worked. So it's been working for 2 years now. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds like the most perfect setup ever.
It was so fortunate that Payoneer came on the scene. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's clear that you weren't affected by the $100 debacle.
No, I was not. No, yeah.
Tell anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, what? No, I'm not going in a bank. Everything says I bank with GMMB, so we do everything remotely. So everybody gets paid. All the finances get paid online. So those things are not something I touch up with. But that's so interesting that you can do that, because then there's no interaction on your part. There's no you going into any bank. There's no trying to fuss up with the teller. Like, everything is done and straight into your account.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of people are listening very envious of you right now.
Okay, so I really like that because I'm introverted. I don't like crowds.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, all right. So somebody randomly listened to this podcast. They saw the Udemy title, which is probably going to be part of the title in this podcast. What would be your top tip for them, for them wanting to start off with Udemy? What would be your top tip?
Okay, first of all, the right mindset. With any business, you have to play the long game. Udemy is not a short-term game, right? So if you want to get into Udemy, there are many instructors that what they do is this. I have a great idea. I'm going to spend 6 months of my life creating video courses. I'm then going to put it up on Udemy as my brand new course, because you don't have to pay anything. You can just join Udemy and throw a course up. And then I'm going to complain incessantly that Udemy isn't selling it, because it's not selling at all. So what you essentially, the best thing to do, and this is what I did, is that I researched this. I went on discussion forums on the net, really crappy 90s looking forums, but those guys discussing stuff there. And I saw that there was a need. So what you do is that, what are my skills? How do my skills relate, if at all, to a particular audience? then what is the need that I could find? I could research it. So I researched it, and then I created about 8 videos and put it on YouTube, and then invited people from the forum to just view the videos and say, hey, here's what I think. So I went on the forums and I helped people. And then I saw that, hey, people were interested in these YouTube videos and more people were asking questions. And then I knew, hey, I had something going there. So that when I put my first course on Udemy, I brought people in because I knew the people on the forums and I said, hey, I've got this brand new course. And Udemy's algorithms took over after that because it saw that people were doing the course and they started promoting it, and it all took place from there. So you have to be able to do your own work to understand where whatever topic you want to talk about and create a course on, that there is some need for it in some niche audience somewhere out there, and be very specific about that. And that is the number one tip. Don't just go about this as I have a great idea. You have to find some way to validate it. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. Sometimes you have to go through 2 or 3 things before you get there.
I feel like that's applicable in so many different industries. Pauline here to let you know about Microsoft 365. As a small business owner, it has been a saving grace to my bottom line. Not only is it allowing me to operate my organization without having a rent expense, but I'm able to really understand the productivity levels of my team. So go Microsoft 365. Trust me. What is your take on entrepreneurship in I don't want to say the Caribbean, I would just say Trinidad, because you are an entrepreneur, but you do not fit the mold that is taught in most schools or fits in the media and so forth, right? So what is your take on what it is to be an entrepreneur, especially in Trinidad and Tobago? Because you have the media, the traditional media, giving people who has been, these massive legacy companies always get the forefront of the paper.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna say it. It's because they're the ones that give them the ad spend, right? So there's the one that make it, and that's the perception of what it is to be an entrepreneur. So I want to hear what you have to say on entrepreneurship in Trinidad and Tobago.
All right. So 2 things. Number one, I wish more and more entrepreneurs could find markets out of Trinidad and Tobago, to find audiences out of Trinidad and Tobago. I know that is not always possible, but that is my wish. I wish that each entrepreneur could start off by saying, let's see what I could do where the audience is outside of the Caribbean. Maybe some people in the Caribbean, but outside of Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean, fine. Regionally, fine. Internationally, great. But that being said, it's not always possible because there are many different types of businesses, right? Entrepreneurship, as I've seen it taught by various places in TNT, is much too academic still. So there's this I can't remember, it's by Alex Osterwilder, called the Business Canvas Model. It's a 1-page look at your business. That's it. We still writing these 30-page business plans. When you write a business plan, it means you have 3 to 5 years of data to write the business plan. So why are you writing a business plan and you don't have all that?
So in our defense, and I can imagine anybody listening, and I agree with you. I just, from the other side of it, I know that a lot of banks ask for it. And when you have, because people think that to be a good entrepreneur, you need to have the backing of a bank, right? So it's kind of like, well, the bank is asking for it. And when you Google it, everybody says you need it. And you think, oh, well, then I have to spend this, how long creating this document that nobody's going to read? But anyway, carry on.
I know, I understand, because, I mean, the way I see banks, they like house loans and car loans. They make real money off of that. Businesses, right? They're not set up for that. Households and car loans, that's what they do. But in terms of that, I would say my style is number one, bootstrap, right? And number two, who are my customers? If you don't have customers, you don't have a business. So try to figure out who your customers are from before. Very customer focused. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts in a business. There's the marketing, there's the advertising, there's the office this, that. All of those things just to support selling to customers. So for me, I have lost sight of that in the past and paid a heavy price and wasted a lot of time and resources. So in terms of entrepreneurship, my style is to bootstrap the business and that's number one. And number two, customers first. Start really small, minimum viable audience, and try to see if you can sell stuff to some people and go from there. Because try as quickly as possible to sell. That is my style. That's my advice.
Yeah, I agree. And the idea of entrepreneurship, what you're saying about getting customers outside of where we are, I feel like we have to rethink what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Because while I was in China, I went there to do the triathlon and I met some people. I walked with my chief curry. Yes, I did.
Nice.
And also worked with the shadow belly seasoning, and there's a pimento seasoning as well. I think his mother-in-law. And the food came out really good. Like I mean, I cook well, but the ingredients of love was real there. But anyways, all the folks that I cooked for, there was an Argentinian, there was a Canadian, there was American, and they loved it, you know. And all I can think is there an opportunity here for, you know, somebody like mother-in-law and Breechies with their pepper sauce to export their stuff? And are they even thinking about it like that, you know? So the idea to rethink entrepreneurship and go outside of Trinidad, it's so important, Trinidad and Tobago, because you have Amazon, you know, not even creeping anymore into our market. They are here.
Yep.
You can actually order something directly from Amazon and it'll be delivered here. So I think that is so important. And for you as an example, it's apparent that we can do it. So final question for you.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna create a scenario here and you have to give me your response on it.
Right.
So CARICOM, it's a thing. Let's assume that it's a real thing that we all respected.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm just dripping with, like, I have a passion for it, so I can't help it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you are head of CARICOM, you've been voted in, they say, okay, you are leading the ship that is CARICOM. What is your first point of discussion? What is your first point of reference? What do you do first?
Okay, so, gosh.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough question, Pauline. You see, the thing about it is this. I am very skeptical now, the way the world is, about anything run by the state. Not any particular political party, by the state. And because they're not agile enough. And CARICOM is not agile enough. And whereas CARICOM is such a great idea and has so much potential, in terms of what I would do, I would start to look at how things are done in CARICOM as looking at all the red tape. Might be like a version of Donald Trump, being the tyrant that he is, but I would go into it and find a way to do things faster and just get past all of the red tape. I would try to bring in more business people hands-on to actually communicate, as opposed to, well, if the representative is going up with the minister and we're having this dinner and so on. It's like, screw all the dinners. Just get together and have a coffee and talk. So my first priority would be to get rid of bureaucracy, find ways to do things more informally. And that's it. That's what I would do. Yeah.
And I think that's a great place to close off, because that is the point of view of an entrepreneur. You're just like, let's just get things done. Let's just get it done. That's what that sounds like.
Definitely.
So Emile, if anybody wants to follow you, where would you tell them to go?
Actually, you could go to udemy.com, udemy.com, and there's this huge search bar at the top of the website. Type in Emile Ackbarali, and you'll see all my courses. You'll see my profile page, and you'll see me there. And so also on LinkedIn.
Right. So that's where we would have met.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving me your time. And we will see you next week at Live from the Caribbean.
Great.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week. Make sure to subscribe in iTunes, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen for your podcasts. Don't forget to join the community at our website, LinkedInLocalCaribbean.com. If you liked this show, you might want to check out our next LinkedIn Local event by following the hashtags on LinkedIn. Search for hashtag LinkedIn Local Caribbean.